they're like, there's one right there. It's like, 20 foot from us. And then they throw this, 20 million or 2 million candle watt spotlight on, and there's nothing there. And then they bring the light down, and it's still there. And they couldn't see it, but the heat signature was showing up. It's right there in front of them.
Today, I Jupiter podcast. I'm your host, Tom Franklin, and today we have on Rodger Williams from Squatchin Holler podcast, and we're going to go into his podcast, what he's learned. Podcast he's been doing about the same amount of time I have. It's pretty much similar. He's also a monetized channel, so we're going to go ahead and make sure we get that link. He's going to have to send me the link, Rodger. He's in the green room right now. We're going to put him at the bottom of the page, and we're going to get into what it's like to be a podcaster like myself, some of his personal stories and some of the stories he's heard on his show that have made him question, what's going on out there, which is basically what we do on this podcast. If you keep finding yourself coming back to the Eye of Jupiter podcast, please do me a favor, like and subscribe to the channel. Go ahead and hit the bell notification, write a comment. You can also find me on Rumble. So go over on Rumble. I have, 1,100 subs over here. And Rumble, I'm at like 50. So go over to Rumble if you'd like to, and then maybe one day I'll go ahead and put some more of the saucy stuff over there that I can't put here on YouTube. You can also go over to Spreaker, Spreaker, which is where I have all my podcasts. You can also just go ahead and find the podcast anywhere that you actually download them, except for Apple. I will be getting there soon enough. It's just a long process, and I'm very, very busy. If you enjoy merchandise, I do have some merch. Just go down, click the link in the description below. Get yourself a hat, get yourself a t-shirt, and help support the podcast. So with all that out of the way, please let's have a warm welcome for Rodger Williams from Squatchin Holler.
Hey, Tom.
Hey, buddy. Thanks so much. I'm doing good, man. Thanks so much for coming on the show. I wrote you, and I actually accidentally wrote February 23rd, and I meant January 23rd. You were like, "Oh, that's okay. I can come on anyway." So I was like, "Oh, this guy is awesome, man." So thanks for accepting the invitation, dude.
That's how I got my start. And like a lot of people you talk to and I talk to, I kept things bottled up for a long time, and I didn't know anything about podcast. And at work, this girl was listening. We got permission to listen to podcast. And I'm like, you know what? I wonder if there's a Bigfoot podcast. And oh my God.
Is there?
Started there, and I told a guy my story and some of the stories. I went on his show, and then I went on Bigfoot Society. And when you finally put it out there and you get it off your back, just let it go. Whether you're writing something for fun or whatever, you let somebody read it. They may judge it or whatever. It's that type of feeling, and I felt so much better that it was finally out there, and so it kind of evolved. That guy wanted me to co-host some, and I did. I enjoyed it. I didn't get to ask the questions I wanted to all the time, so I'm like, you know what? Let's do this. And the biggest benefit to doing the podcast is seeing the relief of people that finally get it. I have people that are seasoned. They've been researchers for years. They have books, whatever. Then I have the ones that come on that have never told it before, and that's the best ones.
I just had one released like that. I had a Pancho Zorch, which is not his name; it's a pseudonym. He's a former
Right.
U.S. Army soldier, like myself, and he's like, I can't do this because of my job. And he had a Bigfoot encounter in like Oregon, and then he went back home to Missouri, and he had the weirdest dog man encounter. It's weird. It was strange, and we talked for like an hour and a half, and you could just see that he just slowly started. I think
Mm-hmm.
he said he's been talking about it for about a year now, and you can see him lighten, loosening up. You say, hey Tom, this, that, and the other. He like use my name.
Yep.
If they use your name in return,
Yes, sir. Yep.
it's a really cool thing. I think that also the most enjoyable part is just getting to talk to people and having them share their experiences. It's awesome.
And the thing is, I only do so many shows. I took a break for about 3 months because if you really dig into this stuff, where like you may start with Bigfoot, and you may start with, this comes in and this comes in, and then all of a sudden you're inundated with, your show is perfect because people ask me early on when they would interview me, they're like, what's your take on Flesh and Blood or whatever, and I'm like, man, I'll tell you how I am. Uh, because I saw one that
Okay.
started this back in 1985. I was 14. Um, it made me question what else is real. And so I always tell people I don't know whether I'm open minded because I saw a Bigfoot, or I saw a Bigfoot because I'm open minded.
Woo.
That's come along with these interviews and people I've met. And I'm like a 8-track. I'll jump around. You might have to reel me back in, but uh, there's so much to it. And what I was saying was, they asked me, "What you think they're flesh and blood? You think they're whatever?" Early on, you can go back and look at some of the shows I was on. I said, "Man, here's where I am. I'm gonna say 95% flesh and blood. I'm gonna leave 5% open because I'm open minded, and I'm not gonna close that door because I've always told my son that the second that you think you know everything, that's as smart as you'll ever be, and that's okay if that's where you're comfortable at, right?"
Yeah.
There's a lot of people like that. I'm not like that. I leave that door open, leave the crack in the door. Now, with stuff we've had happen to us since we started our amateur researching and actually going out in the field or whatever at night, and meeting people that know where they're at,
Yeah, I
uh,
got you.
now I'm more, man, I'm gonna say 50-50, and I don't
There
know.
you go.
It could
That's why.
be it could be I've seen some weird stuff. I've had some weird stuff happen and seen some weird stuff. And the thing is, 99% of the time there are people there when it happens. So it's not just like I'm running out in the woods and coming back and say, "Yo, guess what I saw? What happened?" It's not. It hadn't been like that. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I
it's
think that I like to quote Einstein on it. He says, "Once you say that you know, you give up thinking." And
that's right.
I think it's a really good way of going about it. I've kind of that camp too. I've had people who say they've opened up portals, and I have people who said, that they're flesh and blood. How could they move things and do things, and the way they look and the way they act, and you can smell them and the infrasound. How is that possible that they're not? And I'm like, well, the infrasound itself also gives like this weird, like, you know what I mean? So there's people who always want to like pigeonhole you and put you in some type of
Yep.
quote unquote camp, and that's not what I'm here to do, dude. I'm here to just like, you seen something, let's hear it, buddy. Let's go ahead and get it out
Yeah.
there, man.
Well, all right. I did my first. I went to my first Bigfoot conference, and the reason I did, my dad passed away in 2022. Well, on the first anniversary, it just so happened the Gatlinburg Bigfoot conference was going on. And I told my son and I were really close to him. I said, "Hey, what about let's go get out of town and I'll show you some of his favorite places in East Tennessee. And that way we won't be sitting around thinking about it." And so I ended up we went to the Bigfoot show, the conference, and I met Brian King Sharp with Sasquatch Odyssey, and I ended up on stage. It's kind of like a Jerry Clower story. Yeah, I had about 10 minutes to, and so I'm standing backstage with Cliff Barackman. I'm around all these people, and everybody's really nice. Matt Pruitt, that helps with the podcast with Cliff. He lives in Middle Tennessee now. He ended up coming on my show. So there were some crazy things that happened that I didn't expect, right?
Right.
And it's been like a whirlwind. And man, I got off track again.
No,
What was
don't
I?
worry about it. There's no track to be on, dude. We're here together
Yeah,
talking. The mere
and
fact that we're existing, I'm in Mexico, you're in Tennessee, and
that's
we're
amazing.
talking about Bigfoot is the coolest thing ever, isn't it? Come on.
Well, and so where I have to adjust is like I probably have a million questions for you, but I'm not going to do that.
You can, dude, you can interview me. We can, let's talk, man. It's not,
but
we're here to promote. We're here to get some of your stories. I would love to hear your actual Bigfoot story in
okay,
1985. We can do that, and I would love to just promote your show. I mean, you're a cool cat.
okay,
I mean, we talked in the green room for about 10 minutes, and we got into stand up and getting on stage and
yeah.
talking about podcasting and reading people and stuff like that. So whatever wherever this goes, it goes, dude. And I just
Well,
enjoy conversation. So
there's a big, something you said there. I don't know. I've always had a natural ability, especially in person. Um, we had a store on the interstate. I grew up doing that. I worked at the jail for a couple years, and when I was 19 and 20. So the reading the people, reading the crowd, reading the room is very valuable, and it also comes in handy sometimes with when you're doing this.
yeah,
Um, I don't discount anybody's stories at all, but there's you know sometimes you go, wait a minute, but you got to realize they may be nervous. Not
yeah,
everybody can come on in front of a camera and tell things, and so I give them a lot of leeway.
yeah,
But the thing is, if we do close that off, if somebody's telling you the story, you listen. And the reason I like this, when we're not here and we're gone someday, hopefully this will still be able. We're documenting things, right? So
yes.
researchers may need a small piece of the puzzle to make things make sense. Well, some random person from Arkansas might have seen something happen, and then they're like, "Whoa, that
Well,
makes it make sense. It ties it
yeah, yeah,
together."
yeah, yeah. Sometimes you'll hear something you've never heard before that might throw you off, and you're like, "Oh, come on!" But this is the way I look at it, man. It's like I give everyone the opportunity to say whatever it is that they're going to say. It's
Yeah,
their encounter. This is what they experienced. I wasn't there. You weren't there. They were
exactly.
there. And
That
if they happen to be a charlatan, if they happen to be,
Yep.
they think that this, being for some reason that being a nonsensical liar to be some well-known person, in the end it all comes out in the wash.
it
You know what I
does,
mean? they're,
and
they're going to be found out, and they're going to
yes, sir.
be, you know what I mean, and it's not my fault, but I'm not going to call you out. I'm
It
going to
just
do
happens.
my job. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it, if if you let people like that talk, they usually tell on themselves eventually.
Yeah.
But 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 it's amazing. I was warned coming into this that there's going to be people that's going to push back. And I understood that. Uh, there are people that that know things. Now, all I know is what's happened to me.
Okay.
I may believe this because I trust this person that's had 30 years experience, and I've been around them, and I know their character. I know people that know them. I know how they've treated people. You know what I mean? So
Right.
that I'm trusting. I don't know that though. All I know is what's happened to me. That's all
Right.
anybody really knows. I can read a book and I can gain knowledge maybe, but I'm trusting that that person that wrote the book's not what you just said. And there are some of
Right.
them out there because,
Yeah.
yeah,
There is. There
that's
is.
far as I'll go on that.
Yeah,
But
there is. But like I said, to quote Rommel, which is a weird person to quote, the Desert Fox of Nazi Germany, he said, "In the end, all truth will come out."
yeah,
And he was talking about the end of World War II, the Nuremberg trials, and all those things.
right,
And I'm not trying to compare the two in that sense, but in a
right,
sense, like you're saying, a person will eventually tell on themselves. It's
yep,
kind of it's part and parcel for what we do, but in the same time, in there, it's kind of like the justice system. You'd rather have, you know, uh 10 felons on the street than one innocent person behind bars. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that. And we have to do that, man. So Roger, do me a favor. Like, what happened in 1985, man? Go ahead and tell me about it.
So I tell people I'm kind of learning in reverse, because there were some things that happened before that day that I didn't know might be connected. But after you start learning years later, you're like, oh, wait a minute, this could be connected to that. So I grew up Southern Middle Tennessee, rural. I had no neighbors, no kids my age around, so I spent time outside. Uh, I started hunting when I was 8 with my dad.
Oh, wow.
I was fishing. I had my own gun at 8 years old. We were squirrel hunting. He taught me the right ways. He made sure I was safe. He taught me everything. And then, believe it or not, at 10 or 11 years old, I was hunting by myself
Wow.
sometimes. And but when you say hunting, I mean, at that age, you're not experienced. You're exploring, really. You're going through the creeks, and Um, so I was bored that day, and there was a green field that run. It's probably 500 yards up to the very top of this. It was flat for 2/3 of it, and then it started up this steep hill to a fence row. And my hunting seat, I was on a mound hidden by natural bushes and stuff. It was in the back corner. I couldn't see it because there was a bend in that, so I couldn't see that actually. But I'd seen my dad walk that way a million times. He was like 5'8", 5'9", when he was young, maybe. And so, yeah, how I'm already losing height. I'm
Yeah, you
54.
start you start get that you start get that banana shape as you get older. Yeah, I
Yeah,
know. I
uh,
understand.
but so but the thing is, um, the fact there's no experts, but the fact that I was out in those woods, I had walked that hill, I had run through that grass, and I know how tough it was, which pays off in the story here. I just looked up. I walked out across the driveway and went out in this field, and I'm just looking up there, and there's no rabbits, there's no animals or nothing, and I'm about to leave, and I'm just being outside. I'm not going back there. And something caught my eye to the left, right at that point where it made that bend.
Where the bend is, yeah.
And when it stepped out, excuse me, when it stepped out, you people always say, well, the first thing I noticed, I believe that the reason people have this they can't describe the feeling is because you're noticing everything at the same time. None of it's right. The color's not right. The height, I can sit here and tell you, oh, I saw a 8 foot tall, whatever, and 800 pounds. Until you see the mass that comes along with this, you really can't explain it. I can put it into words to you, but when you see something, you're not. Uh-oh, are you still there?
Yes.
Yeah, that was my stupid computer. Sorry.
No
um,
worries. No worries. It happens on my end too.
but when you see something that's not supposed to exist, or I mean, if it had been 3 foot tall, it might not have been as shocking.
Hmm.
But this thing, as best we could figure by a limb, it was under, and I went up and stood on my tiptoes. I can reach like 7'6", 7'5", 7'6", standing up, and I saw it under this. The head was just under this limb, so best guess somewhere between 7 and 7.5 tall. But there's no neckline. It was about 170 yards. And if I was wearing this right here at 170 yards, you could see I had a green shirt on. You could see that, my neckline in this color here. You could see a black hat, blue
Yeah.
jeans. There was none of that. It was just all one color. Um, the best way I can describe it, a Hershey's chocolate bar, milk chocolate, not the wrapper, but the inside, the chocolate actual,
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of it's brown, but it's a lighter brown,
Hmm.
head to toe. And so I'm stunned, of course. And the question pops in my head, should I run? and and I just felt like I didn't need to. I shouldn't. Well, I'm not going to say when I thought that is when it reacted, but it was looking up this hill. And as I thinking I might need to run, its shoulders and it's looking up and it turns at the waist like this right here and looks right at me.
Whoa.
Like, and it wasn't shocked. It was like it. I felt like it knew I was there. That could be because I hunted there a lot, back in there. I don't know.
Right.
That's
Oh, it's
speculation.
probably seen you many times back there.
Exactly. So, if a deer had done that, it might have reacted different. It might have jumped a little bit, or when you
Yeah,
walk up
yeah,
on
yeah.
the person and they
Tail
jump.
goes up. They get skittish. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Whatever I was looking at was the alpha because he did not care. It turned and looked at me, and then looked right back to where he was looking initially. And there was a choke point up there, and there was a gate had been open for years, and the honeysuckles had grown, and you couldn't open it or close it. It was just open, and there was a gap up there, and that was the quickest way to get to that other field behind the cemetery that was behind my house. And when he started walking, at 14, I'm not like taking like measurements about the ratios, but I just knew it didn't look right. That's
Gotcha.
not a person. If my Uncle Buddy was up there and he had a little gimp leg or whatever, or he has a certain stride or something, people that and you're familiar with, or your animals,
Yes,
you can pick them out. And the people may laugh at that, but if I see
it's
a
the
if I
truth.
see a canine looking animal up there, by the way it's moving, it'll tell you pretty much what it is because all of them move a little different. And so I knew it wasn't right. So I was locked on to it, and people were like, "What the hands look like? Well, what the face?" Now it wasn't close enough to see a face, but the one
Right.
thing I was locked on, and the reason I was locked onto this, it started up that hill that my little fat tail had walked up a bunch of times. Well, when I walked up it, I had to lean forward, and the guy didn't bush hog the. He was an older man. He was not about 90, almost 90, and he didn't have that place bush hogged every year. So you'd have regrowth, and it would be intertwined, and some of
Right.
it was over knee high. So when I was walking, my legs, it would be out and over, leaning and out and over this tall grass because you couldn't go through it.
Right.
Out and over, out and over. If you or any of your viewers have ever seen a Tennessee walking horse, they'll kick those legs up and over like that, straight up and over, straight up and over. And that was the motion of these legs stepping right over that grass. The back wasn't leaned as much as you would think it would be. I've
Right.
gone back and thought about it. Maybe that's the flexible foot causes that.
Mm.
And it walks up through there. It on a good day, 3 minutes. On a bad day, 10 minutes. Stopping, having to rest. This whole encounter only lasted about 30 seconds.
What's still a long time, Roger.
That is well. It's
30 seconds in
yes,
the Bigfoot world is an
that's a
eternity, dude.
lot. That's a
That's a
lot.
long time. People get glimpses of maybe 2, 3
Yes,
seconds or
sir.
something like, for the most part.
And
But that is a long time.
that is a long time, and I had to realize that I was telling my story, and then when I get to hearing stories, so I saw one from the belly button up for like 2 seconds, but it was definitely a Bigfoot, and I'm thinking, daggum, 30 seconds is a pretty good, but I got to observe the movement,
Right, right,
how the body was moving. And so just that walk alone told me it wasn't a person. The size of
right.
it, not forget the size and the color, but that movement and that to me, I've got to share that with some researchers. Always to some people that they watch on TV, we've talked about it. And one of them was like, I see what you're saying. It was a flexible foot and it walking like this, the body lean would be different than us, right? The balance.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
then it hit me. Now, I'm not a scientist. It's just I go back and relive this and replay it in my head. Now, we have the celebration over here at one county over, and it's the championship of the walking horse thing. So the goal is for that rider's head that when this aha moment when this hit me, this speculation also, but having little bits of information of other parts, the grass and the hill, how I walked up through there, that helped me. Now, how they win those competitions, and there's millions of dollars involved.
Wow.
That horse with that gait and the way they squat, the rider, the whoever's head is the smoothest
Yeah.
usually wins. And I got to
Right.
thinking about this where there was no head bob. I mean, then I interview people and they're like, "Oh, it was smooth as glass. The head wasn't bouncing. The head wasn't." And I'm thinking it had
I
the
was talking.
same gait up that hill as a walking horse, a Tennessee walking horse, and that's the goal is for the head not of the rider to not
Right.
move.
I was talking to MK Davis about that. And he was saying to me, he said it's smoother because he loves to go into videos and break them
Oh
down.
yeah,
He's incredible at what he does. I was
yeah,
like, this one, the Patty Gimlin has a braid on his face, and I'm like, I've never seen that. It just blew me
yeah.
away. And I was talking about that smooth head movement. He said,
Mhm.
Tom, it's not 100% smooth. There is
Yeah.
but it's not the same as us. Slight. It's ever so slight. So yeah, I know what you're talking about, dude.
Have you ever seen a cameraman back in the old days? Now the cameras have where you can get your iPhone and you can be all over the place and
Yeah, it
it
used to be on the shoulder.
yes sir. What did they do when they were moving? They unlocked their knees,
They would squat down and get on one knee.
or if they were walking, they would unlock their knees and they would have that smoother gait. It looked awkward because we're not built that way.
Oh
But
God, I don't think I've ever noticed that, but okay, I'll trust you.
no, no, no. I mean, I've seen cameramen with that big camera back in the day when they were doing a walking shot to keep it smoother. They would kind of like you said squat down a little bit
Uh-huh.
and move kind of to keep it from doing that.
Yeah, bobbing
So
up and down. Mhm.
so it's a little it, when I hear people because I've been through it when we start spitballing throwing things against the wall. Well, it's hard to do that if you don't have an actual something to compare to different things, right?
Yeah, a frame of reference.
So growing up rural, and no matter what your job is, I've talked to tons of ex police officers, and one of them made a good comment one day. He's like, as you gain experience in whatever field you're in, or just in life, you gain a bank of sounds, a bank of smells, a memory bank.
Yeah.
So when you hear something, you identify it pretty quick, so you can move on to the next thing. And it's the same way with visuals. I think because sometimes I'm driving down the road, not talking, and I'm going back to okay, well, this person said this in this interview. Well, this person said that, and then well, that might apply to something I've seen, evidence or whatever. And I don't I, like if I see somebody and they're telling a great story, and they're really really good at it. I interviewed a guy a few days ago. I saw him telling his story, and I'd seen him on a small show like mine, and I had seen him on Small Town Monsters and all that. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm friends with him on Facebook. I cut it off. I didn't want anything to influence my questions.
Done it. I'm the same exact way.
I don't want to hear anymore.
I'll look up a guest and I'll just kind of see like the way they talk just for
Mm-hmm.
a second. You know what I mean? Because I think was it? I can't remember if it was you or not. It might have been another gentleman. And I was like, he was talking about he had this thing where it was a black box in the woods. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but let's look for a second. And the
Let's
gentleman
talk about it.
started talking. I was like, ooh, I'm definitely going to interview this guy. And then I didn't
Right.
watch anymore because I want to listen to the experience
Yep.
as I hear it and my reactions to be in that moment because
Yes.
that is my favorite part. It's like you get to hear it and you go, "Oh, the authenticity of the reaction is for
Yep.
me awesome. I love that. I love that. I agree with you."
And another thing for me, what it does, I might ask him the same 10 questions, but I'm not going to be influenced by the other interviewer, what they're asking.
Yeah,
I don't want to go in with that in my head. I want to, like you said, I want to focus on the story. I want to focus on the person. And if I ask the same question, so be it. But a lot of times it don't happen. You go back and watch later, and I did that early on, and I'm like, wait a minute, I just did the same show as somebody else did because I'm asking the same questions. So anyway, but coming into this, I have to keep telling. I have to remind myself of this. Whether talking about the UFO, some of the couple of the orbs that I've seen, ghost stuff that's happened in the past with me and some of my family. Not everybody has seen this stuff, the Bigfoot and all that. So
Yeah.
we have researchers that are passionate about it because they read a book. And then we have people that can't let it go, kind of like me, because I'm like, oh, because it does
Yeah,
change.
we were talking
So
about Harley Owens. That's what happened to him. He was out at a sawmill, taking it apart to sell it for parts, and he
yep,
was just there overnight and had this incredible encounter.
yep,
Wasn't able to go in the woods. I was one of the first people he contacted, and he was like, "I need to talk," and I was like,
yeah,
"Let's go." And then ever since then, he's this
took
incredible
off.
researcher in Eastern
Well,
Tennessee. Yeah, he was on Tony Merkel's show, for
yeah,
crying out loud. He was on
yep.
what confessionals, and I was just like, dude. And he's coming back on, I think, tomorrow. I think I'm having Harley on tomorrow. Yeah, I got my
It,
phone's way over there. But yeah, I think he's on tomorrow on my live. He's like, I got some new stuff. I'm like, come on, buddy, let's go. And yeah, it's I actually have some questions. Like, so okay, you see this thing go up the hill, 30-second encounter. So what
mhm.
did you do after that? Did you like just go home, or what did you do? Did you just like
So I
sit
could.
there and take it in for a second? Or what happened?
Well, I was. You ever heard people talk about they went numb?
Yeah.
Whatever. You'll go. I went kind of numb, and so this one of I was on Beast TV early on, and Larry Porch. This stuck with me because it's perfect. He said, I said, I don't know if y'all know what I mean, kind of sort of. I'm paraphrasing. And Larry said, oh, I do. He said, you have the Rodger 5 minutes before you saw the Bigfoot, and you have the Rodger 5 minutes after you saw the Bigfoot. You're a totally different person. And I'm like,
Right.
oh my God, you're right. Because now, if you're telling me that you saw a portal or a UFO or whatever, who am I to question you? Because I'm telling you what I saw, and
Yeah.
it's all it's there's no proof. I mean,
It's kind of like but it's also kind of like a brotherhood that happens. It's like
yeah.
when someone says, like, I told you before show, I've had a poltergeist encounter
Mhm.
when I was 8 years old that just messed me up for
Yeah,
it still kind of bothers me a little bit, when you're so young. And when you tell somebody, my parents didn't believe me. They told me
yeah,
to go back
yeah,
to bed, that I was screwing around and stop
yeah,
playing around with your sisters, and because they were in the room with me at the time. And I'm
been
like,
there.
this happened over a multitude of different times. This wasn't just one day. This is like 3 or 4 encounters over.
Mhm.
I can't remember how they all fit because
Right.
30
Young.
35 years ago.
Right.
And so, when you're confronted with something that isn't taught in school, that isn't seen as being normal, you kind of accidentally become like a part of this brotherhood of the unexplainable. It's just
Yeah,
like, but you also you confide in those people because those people will listen to you. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So I think, being yourself and me being, what mine are more paranormal, the things I've run into,
right.
and you've run across and paranormal and, some UFO stuff. It changes you, and it gives you this ability to speak to somebody who's had it, and not because,
Yeah,
you've seen podcasts where it's like question A, question B, question
yeah,
C, have a
yeah,
nice day, buy my shirt. And, we are sponsored
yeah,
by, whatever,
yeah,
some pills or something. And those are just okay, but like that's not what people are listening to this for. They're listening to it for, there's somebody out there right now who might run across this conversation that you and I are having right now, and they'll go, I want to contact Rodger, or I want to contact Tom, or I want to contact my friend who knows a friend who, because I want to get this out there. And because in the end, that's what we're doing. Because a lot of people, there's this thing, like, the big city people. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. It's a big city, right? You know what I mean? But
I've
I
been there.
would always,
Yeah,
yeah, I'd always go into, like, Patapsco State Park, or I would go out into the Frederick County out in the west, and I would go hunting with my father and go fishing with my father as a kid.
yeah,
So I was born in the city, but we would always go out to the countryside every weekend. We're out of here, dude. Let's go. I got to get on the bay. I got to get out on Chesapeake and do some crabbing, or do some rock
yeah.
fishing, or do
Oh man.
whatever I'm doing.
Yeah,
And so there's this thing where people from the big city look at people from the countryside as like less intelligent. It's just simply isn't true. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
a stigma attached to it. So when you hear someone with that, you have an accent, but it's not a
yeah,
strong one. You know what I mean? There's people who like, I listen to, Robert Effler, Robert Effler, I hope you're doing better. I know you had a heart attack, my friend, but when he talks, he has this drawl on him, man. It takes me a minute to get my ears accustomed to it. And so when you hear people with these encounters and you automatically are a person of the city who doesn't have that type of contact and doesn't know the people of the area, it's like two different countries in a way. You're going to discount them at the very beginning. Right. So when you run across a big city folk like myself, and I'm talking to these people, it kind of also helps a little bit. And then how can all these people have similar as well as unsimilar aspects of their encounter meet up and they've never spoken to one another before? You know what I mean? That's the thing that's great.
And this wasn't I didn't have a goal. My goal was to learn. And I thought, well, I can ask questions, but seeing that separation you're talking about, the woo, the not the woo, the flesh and blood, UFOs, no, not UFOs. I'm like, wait a minute. How can we all be a little bit right? You're not going to figure it out if you're over here on this island. So I'll tell people, I am here. I'm gonna build this bridge. It's up to you. And it's worked in our little universe of podcasting, a few shows or whatever. It's worked, but not enough people do that.
Yeah.
And I've been through it. My dad, you asked me what I did. I waited on my dad to get home. And I was always taught to tell the truth. I told the truth when I knew I was fixing to get in trouble. But it always was better to go ahead and get it out, not have to worry about it. The worry about it was what always got me. So Daddy, he got home and I'm like, hey, I need to talk to you about something. And he said, what is it? And I said, I was out there in the field over there today and I think I saw a Bigfoot. He said, oh, that was probably just Buford, over walking his property. I'm like, Buford's 89 years old and barely get to the mailbox. He's no way he's walking up that hill in like 20 seconds,
and it's like, you know what, son, you got a point there. You're making sense.
But what's wild is a couple years later, I don't remember if it was Saturday morning or Sunday morning. It was weekend. So my dad comes in there and he said, hey, get up. Early in the morning, get up. I'm like, something wrong? No, I need to talk to you. I'm like, okay. He said, how big was that thing you said you saw? And I went through it and told him, well, that limb up there is about 8 foot. So, about 7 to 7.5. And how much you think it weighed? And I was telling him, guesstimating, because I'd seen the hogs and I've seen the bulls and you kind of imagine.
You kind of get a guess.
Yeah. So, you might be off by 100 pounds, but my God, as big as the thing was, I trying to kind of underestimate it a little bit because it won't sound too crazy,
Right.
But he's sitting there and this, he didn't talk about stuff like that. And so the ghosts and stuff like that,
he's one of those old, he's like my father, one of those old school.
And I said, why are you asking me this? He said, well, me and your mom we were riding around last night and we got up on Simmons Ridge Road and I started, I think he was going up the hill. And he said, you know where that fence, that the bank is on the left, it runs up through there. And then there's their fence. He's, it's about, I went back and measured it. My mom showed me what it was at, last year. And, 30, 35 feet to the top of the fence, right?
Okay.
To the road. He said, I got out, to relieve myself. And she got out and was stretching her legs and good night, and, fresh air. And I heard something. I heard a stick break. He said, but it was big. And he said, sounded like a gun went off. And I thought, well, maybe there's a horse or a cow or a bull or something up there and we've disturbed it and it's moving. He said it happened again and he heard something moving in the dry leaves and then he heard what he figured out later was the launch. He said it landed in the road behind us and when it landed, it was 2 feet. Boom, boom. And it shook the ground.
Oh my God, dude.
He said, it stunned him because he knew that was impossible. That absolutely is not possible. A man would have killed himself jumping off of there. He said,
Right.
then it started running to us. He said it was gravel road back then. He said every time the feet would hit the ground, it would shake the ground, but those rocks in the road, it was kicking the rocks towards them. And he was screaming at my mom to get in the car now. Let's go. And the car was running. They jumped in and they left. But he thought about that and he thought about that. He woke me up the next morning. He said, you know, I can't, I can't wrap my head around what you said, but also what landed in the road behind us wasn't a horse or a cow or a bull or a person or, it rules out so many things. He was
All
a he
right.
was he was a smart guy,
So
but he
that's
was
cool
country.
because in the end, you got to have like you telling him he knows. I'm sure the way you're speaking of your father sounds like a wonderful gentleman. You're telling him something, and he's like, "That's unbelievable," and
Right.
my boy, you are still 14 or whatever. And he's like, okay, maybe, yeah, okay, maybe it's a bear. I don't know, right?
Yeah.
Whatever. I love you. I love you. And then, yeah, how long was this later? Maybe a couple years or something.
And I'm going by what car my mom had, and it was a different one. So I'm thinking it was about the 2-year mark,
Okay. And,
after
and
that.
then 2 years later, he has something that he can't explain. And he goes, you know what? But then you
He
had this
coming to
cool,
me.
yeah, this great connection with your father. That's
Yeah.
awesome, dude. I mean, a great connection with about a monster, but fair enough, or whatever these things are. Uh, so,
Yeah.
okay, all right. So you've had that experience, and you were also talking to me in the green room before we started the show here about some type of UFO.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to hear some of these stories more in detail, I've got them on my channel, and you just search my
Absolutely.
name. But there's so much to talk about that I kind of want to hit the high spots too for you, uh,
Yes.
because some of these may help, like you said, may help people. One night we had an old country store back in the '70s, but my mom and dad sold it about 1980, and when I was about 9. So I would still go down there sometimes and hang out with the old guys because that they were like family, some of them. And so when I started driving, I was 17 years old, had old '68 Plymouth. I'd go down there, I'd hang out with them, play checkers, or sit out on the porch with them and whatever. And I loved hearing the stories. And
Yeah.
there's some amazing stories and some true stories that happen. I've got some really amazing true stories from that little group there. So
Missing so much nowadays, man. That was such a good time, dude.
yeah.
I was born in 1980, so but there's that thing where like there was this community, people still do
Mhm.
it in churches, in church and things like that now, I'm sure.
It's not
Uh,
the same though.
but it's not like it used to be. You
Right.
used to sit around and people would have their chewing tobacco, or someone would be
Yeah.
playing on the juke part or some shit.
Living on their
Well,
cedars,
yeah,
playing the
something.
guitar, yeah,
And they're talking about, the weather this year. They got their problems in this field. They're doing well up on this field, or whatever they're talking about. Hunting
yeah.
season coming up. Got a new gun. That is so missing. That to me is like Americana, the stuff that I
Front
love.
I call that front porch therapy. I miss that.
Yeah.
Uh, I showed up one evening, and it was probably about I'm thinking October because there was no leaves on the trees, but it wasn't winter time yet. And there was nobody there. There was the whoever was working at the place. It was dark. It wasn't a cloud in the sky, and I'm like, oh well, dang! I was hoping some of the fellas would be down here. So I walked out in on the other side of the store in the dark and just kind of look. It's nostalgic. I remember we played here and we did this there, whatever. And I'm looking. It would be to the south, towards probably Decatur, Huntsville, Alabama, and there was a hill we called Mount Gracie to the right, and then there was trees close, but then those trees up on that big, large hill. Well, same thing again. You're not looking for anything. We used to sit out as kids, we'd sit out in the woodpile and watch for shooting stars and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Just talking. And well, I noticed something caught my eye up to the left, and it's coming across. It's not really high. Hold on, my computer. It's not really high, but it's high enough. It's not a joke. You know what I mean? Because that's the first thing I was thinking when I saw the shape of it. I'm like, um, somebody's playing a joke on me. But I'm looking
Right.
around. I can't. There's no way. Well, it comes across and it's so freaking smooth. It's like there's no sound, there's no propulsion, there's no blur. You know what? You see somebody cut metal or whatever, and it gets orange, or the molten metal, that orange, that
Yes.
glowing orange. That it was the same. That was that color, and the whole thing was that color. But it wasn't. there was hard edges. You know what I mean? It's like the metal was heated up. And it came across so smooth, and it got to a certain point and it just stopped. And I'm like, should I go get somebody? And I'm like, well, talking to myself in my head, I'm like, well, you might miss something. So it stayed right there for, maybe 3 or 4 seconds, and it started descending. Well, when it went down behind those trees on that big hill. And now it could have been just on the other side, and it could have been 200 miles away and massive. I don't know. I don't have a reference. I
Right.
just know it
I
went down
understand.
behind those trees. And when it went down behind the trees, I could see it through the branches as it descended, and it went out of sight. I'm like, oh no, like this is,
Oh,
but I'm still this. What is this? And it does look like a classic UFO shape. It looks hot. I didn't hear anything, didn't see anything, and it wasn't too long. Here it came. It came back up. I saw it coming up behind the trees again. It went right up to the same level that it had descended at and come across, and it stopped in that same spot.
right.
And I'm looking at it. I'm trying to get as many details as I can. I'm like, I don't see any flashing lights anywhere. I don't see the red, green, white. I don't see any
Right,
of this
right,
stuff.
right.
And this thing it's making no noise, and it looks like it's running on like a train, a magnet train, a train
A
that
maglev.
elevates. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
A
It's that
maglev.
smooth.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at it, and then not a cloud in the sky, stars out. This is oh crap moment number. This is probably number one over the Bigfoot, because this changed everything. I'm sitting there looking at it, and it goes, and it went out into space, and I could see it. There's no clouds. I could see it to a certain point, and it got little fast. And I told you that I'd been to Space and Rocket Center, and they had G-force machines where you get in and feel what 2 and 3 and
Yeah,
4 G.
I wanted a gravitron at Hershey Park, Pennsylvania. I know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
I don't want to see 6 Gs, because I thought my skin was coming off at 4.
Yeah.
So, but me being 17 and seeing that, the first thought that went through my head, if there was people on there or animals, they'd be dead. But
Yes.
so years later, I'm going to be co-hosting this show, and Al Santoriga, Dr.
Yes.
Squatch.
I know
Okay,
I know Al Santoriga. I've had him on.
yeah. So we're talking backstage,
Oh, you've
and I'm
met
like,
him. Oh, that's
oh
awesome.
yeah, oh yeah. I've met a lot of
New
people.
York guy has that really, he's
Yeah.
a really strong New York
Oh,
Italian vibe, dude. Yeah, he's a
he's
cool
got
cat.
some amazing stories.
Yes.
Well, I asked him, when he said I was a MUFON investigator, but he was here to talk about Bigfoot for that show. He said, well, I've been a MUFON investigator, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, hold on, I got a question for you. And I said, I saw this when I was 17, but it took me all of these decades for this question to pop into my head. And I told him that same story I just told you. I said, now, when it left, I said, there was no sonic boom, Al. That's impossible.
Right.
And he said, and I said, this has come to me a few weeks before, and I didn't know who to ask, but I'm asking. He said, you ever seen the Tic Tac video? I'm like, yeah.
Yes.
He said, that cold pocket around the UAP or whatever. He said, we think
Yeah.
they manipulate the atmosphere so they can reach speeds, even in the water. They manipulate where they can reach those speeds because there's no drag. And I said, you know what? I saw at the Space and Rocket Center when they retired the Blackbird or whatever that
Mm-hmm.
traveled 2,000 miles in an hour.
SR-71 Blackbird. Yes.
I said, everybody else is looking at the plane, and I'm at the front next to this plaque. And there's this rod sticking off the end, probably 2.5 foot, maybe 3 foot. And I'm like, what is that? And this plaque said they sent an electrical charge to that rod, and it splits the atmosphere so there's less drag on the plane so it can reach those
Holy
speeds.
cow, dude.
I'm like this, Tom. I'm like, and I'm like, hey, look at this. I'm amazed. Look at this.
And this was
Nobody
developed in
cares.
the 60s, dude. The SR-71 Blackbird is like in the 60 something.
How
And
did they
think
know that?
think about what they're doing now, dude. Then just
Exactly.
imagine what they're doing now.
Yes.
That leads credence to this whole thing that's happened in New
Yes.
Jersey as well, isn't it?
You
Who
yeah, you
knows
look
what
at
the hell's
old
going on?
military boats from let's say Vietnam era, and they have GPS. I asked a guy. He was a frogman. He was original frogman
Okay.
Vietnam. I said, "Hey Max," I said, "I saw a documentary the other day. It's been years ago. So I saw a documentary the other day, and they showed the frogman. They had those aluminum boats. It looked like." I said, "But there was a upside down bell, or like a bell that you would, but it was bigger."
Yeah.
And ring for service, and it was white. And as far as I
Yes.
remember, I said, "What was that on those boats?" He laughed. He said, he took a draw off his cigarette, and he said, "That was GPS." I said, "Back then," he said, "we've had that for a long time." He said, "I could
Oh
tell
my
you stories."
God.
I said, "I could tell you." He said, "They knew where we were at all times."
And the
And I'm like, "Wait a minute, in the
Vietnam
'60s?"
era, that's the late 60s.
Yeah,
That's so then it makes you wonder, like, the stuff like at Groom Lake and all that stuff. What can they possibly be doing, man? This whole Jersey thing is quite fascinating as well, dude. I don't know what you're feeling. It's probably been
you
drugged to death, but
well,
I
I
think it's
got de-
both.
I got
I think it's both.
demonetized for talking about that. So,
For real.
yeah,
Wow, they
yeah,
must
that was
have it.
my
They must have
second.
it. I haven't had any problem with that yet. You must be a little more connected
Well,
than I am.
no, no, no. I believe, you have people report stuff, and you've got people out there that they'll report you for just being mean or whatever. So I don't know. I don't know what we said on it. I mean, I honestly don't know what got us, but that's what we were talking about. Anyway,
Yeah,
maybe
okay.
it'll all work out. But
Uh-huh.
but one of my most favorite.
That
I'm
was
still going to do
that was
shows.
fantastic, dude. That was fantastic. I love that so much. You have no idea. Maybe it'll work out. We're moving on.
Yeah, because there's nothing I can do about it, and I'm still going to do shows where I get that penny for the week, that they give you,
Yeah.
or the 7 cents for the ads that they run.
Yes,
But
that's about right.
so one of my favorite lines in a movie, there's several of them. There's several movies that I love, but this one line, and you'll remember it when I say it, but people kind of forget about it. But in Independence Day,
Okay.
when they go to Area 51 and they go down in there and the president's mouth's wide open and he's looking around and everybody's looking around and Jeff Goldblum and his dad, the character, they're looking around and he says, "Where do we get the money to fund all this?" And he says, "You don't think they're paying $800 for a
For
toilet
toilet
seat, do
seat.
you?"
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I'm like,
Oh yeah,
"Whoa,
dude.
wait a minute." Yeah.
I know
So,
this firsthand, so
yeah. Oh,
I do.
I do too. My current job that I, I'm getting a hip placement in 2 weeks, and my current
Oh,
job says it's taking too long, so they're getting rid of me. It, and I got to do it real fast because of my insurance. So I'm kind of in a
wow.
uh,
A crappy job.
situation here.
That's
But that
awful.
company that I work for, or that company makes
Mhm.
parts for these people that make stuff that goes from the bottom of
Okay.
the ocean from the bottom of the ocean, and there's parts in space.
Okay.
Now,
A
and
certain material.
it may be the circuit board and the chips, and
Okay.
I've held a couple $1 million worth of parts in my hand that's uh, coated in gold, and they're like, "Don't
Okay.
drop that." And me being the comedian I am, I'm like, "Okay, I won't do it again." And they're like, everybody's freaking out. And I'm like, "Oh no, I didn't drop it."
What'd you do it the first time? Don't worry about that.
Yeah,
Look at
yeah,
my
you
look at
did.
my reports.
Yeah, there's no cameras here, so it didn't happen. But the
And
problem is, if a
yeah.
plane falls out of the sky 7 years from now, they're going to trace it back to I was the one that had
Yeah,
the part.
that's scary. That's scary. So,
Yep.
what has been okay? What is some of those? Okay, being a podcast, what are some of the shocking revelations that you've come across? Like when someone says something to you that just absolutely floored you, or like maybe you asked a certain question and the person didn't even think about it, and it made them like relive it in the moment or something like that. What have you So tell me something about Squatchin Holler that has been fun for you and fascinating.
Well, there's been some comments that were like, what the H? You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
and you have to bite your tongue and whatever, or try to keep from, um, because you don't know. And look, the guy might have been telling the truth. One time, this is funny to me, but like, uh, well, how many? He said I've got 10 Bigfoots living on my property, and we're like, God, he must have 1,000 acres, or half a mile by half a mile, whatever. And we're like, how many acres you have? He said 10. I'm like, I could, so he said he had 10 Bigfoots living there close to his property, and one guy said one came through the walls because they can come through the walls, teleport or whatever, and got him in a headlock and was rubbing his, giving a noogie or whatever. And that's the stuff that like comes out of left field, and you're like, wait, what? Did you just say that? You know,
Bigfoot came
and
through the wall and gave you a noogie?
yeah, yeah. So, and you can't look if you laugh, even if it's funny. Now I do. I've gotten comfortable enough now. I'm going to be me, so I will. I mean, I'll laugh. I say, because here's what we got to be comfortable enough with, and I tell people we've got to be comfortable enough for you to ask me a question or call me out on something like, "Hey, but what? How do you think this? Because this don't make sense to me." We need to be thicker skin where we know, well, Tom's just curious and he's not accusing.
The
He's
perfect
not
way to
accusing
saying
me
it,
of anything. He's
perfect
trying
way
to
of saying
understand
it.
it.
The way I learned it was from a comedian named Patrice O'Neill, which is one of my heroes in the comic world. He said you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
That's
and
that's the truth.
that's right. And the thing is, we to, to throw a camera in somebody's face. That's why a lot of people won't come on the show because they're self conscious. Because something you said earlier, because their accent may be a little thick. They've been laughed at before. They have a job. I'm gonna make a guess that you're just like me. You probably have tons of people that have contacted you and said, "I'm gonna tell you this, but you don't put my name out there."
Yes.
And this happened to me. My job, I'll get fired, or I'm a nurse, or I'm a judge. I'm a this.
Yes.
And I've got to tell somebody. But so, what have they got to gain by keeping that a secret? That telling you to
Nothing.
keep it a secret, right?
Not really anything. It's just like they just want to say it. They just like someone's got to hear this, and you're the
Yes.
person that I want to talk to about it. Yeah. Oh, a ton, man. Some people write me. They'll write. What I get mostly is like the
Mm-hmm.
long messenger
Mm-hmm.
thing, and I go, hey, hey man, people send me. I get videos sent to me all the time. People
Mm-hmm.
asking me questions. It's become quite a bit, actually. It's become almost too much to manage. And a lot of times I go, I sent you that video, and I go, I'm sorry, man, I can't watch everything. I just can't. I got a little girl, I got a girlfriend, I got a job, I got a life.
Right. You're right. Oh, you're right.
This. I want this
Right.
to be my job, but even then, it would
Yep.
be too much.
Yep. And
But I had a story yesterday that I can't even talk about just yet. But he's going to come on because we got to change like a lot of things.
right.
But it's a wild one, dude. I got a
Well,
story coming up, dude. It's just oof.
you asked, what some of the surprises. I'm gonna be honest with you. Um, I've had so much stupid crap happen to me that it's hard. It's hard to, But I'm gonna tell you something that scares me. We've been to the LBL. We camped at night at the LBL.
Okay.
We've gone out and we've been in the thick of this stuff. And the
Who's we?
LBL, y'all, is
You gone up there with
creepy.
like Daryl Denton? You went up there with Daryl Denton
I
or
did.
what?
I didn't go with Daryl, but Martin Groves was there. We hung out there. We had a little meet and greet, and there was I don't know if you've ever heard of Kumbo Baker, Tim Kumbo Baker. He was a NASA uh, engineer, and then he's been doing this for 40 years probably. He talks about they did experiments with infrasound, and they had equipment to actually, he knew how to build equipment, and they told a story one night about on our show that he one of them had a FLIR type thing, and they're like, "There's one right there. It's like 20 foot from us," and then they throw this 20 million or 2 million candle watt spotlight on, and there's nothing there, and then they bring the light down, and it's still there, and they couldn't see it, but the heat signature was showing up. It's right there in front of them, and there's
Whoa.
so many. If y'all want to listen, if you might have to break it up into sections, and if you want to hear some amazing stories, we were going to do a 1 hour show. The people got sick and had to cancel. My buddy Greg from Alabama, he knows Kumbo. He come on, and another guy, Joe Parker, came on. We got to talking and just talking back and forth. We talked to anything about pocket knives, guns. Uh, it was that to Bigfoot, to some of his experiments with infrasound, um, Dogman, stories where he got called in to investigate where there was actually some and Bigfoot tracks.
Unlived.
There,
Unlived.
it lasted six. It
Wait,
lasted
there,
six.
there it is right there. That's probably why I got demonetized saying that word. Okay,
It
we are
lasted.
at 1 hour in. I'm gonna have to go ahead and bleep that one. Thank you.
Well, this show lasted over 6 hours, y'all. Yeah, it took me a couple days to get over it. But if you want to hear some, you can skip through or whatever. We're goofing around, but there are some amazing stories in that. It's on Squatchin Holler. You scroll down and you look the one with Kumbo Baker. Some of it you might not like. It's just four guys sitting around, shooting
Yeah,
the
chewing a
breeze,
rag.
but
Yeah,
telling amazing stories too. I learned a lot from them. And so, I never heard of a dog man till I started doing this.
yeah, me either.
And when I heard about it, I thought they were full of crap. But then I started, I've been lucky enough to hang out with Barton Nunley and Martin Groves, and
Okay,
just in a setting of hanging out, at the LBL, not researching, just talking. Uh, I have questions, of course, and they're answering questions and just being friends, And
could you
there
could you
was
maybe tell the audience? I'm sorry, 'cause you said that you were there and it was spooky and we kind of went off course. Could you explain the feeling? What is it about the LBL that is just so? It's such a. It is like I don't know. It's like the Amityville horror house of like cryptids. You know what I mean?
right.
To give some people like a frame of reference. What is the LBL, dude? And what
Goosebumps.
is? Yeah, you get goosebumps just talking
Yeah.
about it.
It,
Could you like go with just like the experience of being there?
all right. So people who watch your show and shows like this, they're obviously interested in other stuff besides Bigfoot. And some
Yes.
of them, like me, uh, I have recognized that I don't know what it is. People will tell you that you're an empath or you have this. It's not a sixth sense or whatever. You're just in tune to your surroundings. I've had
Oh yeah.
people that know tell me things, and I've rejected it. Hey, reason this is happening to you is because this, and this. And I'm like, I don't want this. I prayed one time, like, God, please take this away from me. This stuff is scary. But anyway, so if you've ever walked in the house and you walk in several rooms and then you walk in that one room and
Yep.
it feels heavy,
Yep.
it feels like the air is just,
Like you can cut it with a knife, man.
yes. And you get that feeling. And so the thing, we come in from the south side, the
Right.
Tennessee side. It's about 3 hours to the entrance from my house. And so it's not that far, maybe 2.5 hours. But when you come in, it's beautiful, and you go through there, and you'll see the signs for the cemeteries and all that. And there's certain sections, even at night driving, they're fine. But then there's some sections that that has that feeling. The first time I ever went, I texted Daryl. I said, "Hey, me and Heather, we're gonna go up there. We're having a meet and greet, but I want to go." It was two Thanksgiving weeks ago on that Tuesday. I said, we're going to go up there tomorrow and we're just going to look around and see what this is all about. And he sent me a list of places. Don't go by yourself. Don't go here. Don't go here.
I think it's one. Isn't one called the Devil's Switchback or something like
Backbone.
that? Yeah, Devil's
There was
Backbones.
Backbone. And so we go up there and we go to the place where we're going to have the meet and greet a few months later. I'm like, oh, this is sweet. I like this. Didn't really feel that weird there. I pulled in this place called Red Hollow, REDD, Red Hollow. Didn't realize that was on the list. So
Oh,
we go up, we find a tent that's been abandoned for a while. It's done bleached.
okay,
And
from the sun.
Yeah, it's bleached out. It's up on a knob there. There the cooler is destroyed. There's some belongings, but I wasn't getting out because I didn't know if somebody's still in there. Didn't see any. If I'd have seen some blood or if I'd seen whatever, I'd have reported it. But you could see in the tent, and so I'm like, oh, that's a little weird. We've seen that before in other places. And we
Okay.
turned around and we started out. Well, there had been a drought in Tennessee and Kentucky, and it was bad. Well, that bay was usually full of water, and I didn't know it, but there's a little sliver of water up the center. And I look out there about 80 yards right at the water. It should have been, 10 yards from us, but it was about 80 yards to the water. And I said, Heather, I said, are those tracks? She said, she can't see that well. That's why she's married to me. But she said, but
I tell
she,
my girlfriend the same thing. There's no way
yeah,
you're so beautiful and you're with me. That's not happening. I don't know
yeah,
what I
it's
did.
like her mom was like, Heather, you need LASIK. I said, no, she don't. No, she don't. She'll leave me. But anyway, so I'm like, that looks like that looks like tracks, and that looks like a bunch of them. So I pulled the truck up. Our dog's in there with her. The windows are down, and it's probably in the mid 50s, no wind hardly. So it was comfortable with the jacket on. So for some reason, I left this phone sitting in the truck, but I carried my poor man's GoPro with me, and because it was small, and I said I'll be back in a minute. And I left the keys in the truck, and I had a small. That's all I had, and
Okay. Yeah.
you know what I mean. And
Yes.
so I went out there, and I see a. You can hear me on the video say, "Do they have wolves here?" It was the biggest canine track I've ever seen, and it had a like a appendage coming off the back of it. And I'm like, I've never seen that before. So I'm starting to get nervous, and I haven't got to the tracks yet that I saw. I get out there, and there are so many tracks. There's one I got on. That looks like a hill, and it's about 4 inches wide at the back. But then
Mhm.
as I'm looking, the toes look like marshmallows, big as marshmallows. This track is about 17 or 18 inches, and it's about 9 inches at the top. And I'm
Oh,
looking at this, and I ain't got a chance to look at the other tracks yet because there's a different sizes. And I'm like, I am out here. If I've heard how fast they are now, I know. I'm like, I'm looking around. I'm like, what have I done? And
wow.
Heather's back at the truck. She got the keys or whatever. And so I go. My mind is racing. You got to get back to the truck. And then I'm like, you got to document this. It's a once in a lifetime. So I'm going through and I'm showing the different sizes of the tracks. One of them was 14. I put my foot beside it. It's 12-inch shoe or size 12.
Mhm.
It's about an inch or a couple of inches past that. The small ones, I was going along and showing, and I got as good as I thought I could, and I turn and head back. I get back to the truck, and the truck's locked. I'm like, "What are you doing?" And she unlocked the door, and she said, "Get in." I'm like, "Why?" There was woods, 15, 20 yards behind the truck,
Right.
and she said something threw a rock about the size of a golf ball from out of the woods and hit and bounced under the truck. And I can't see nothing. I didn't know if it was a person or
Right.
whatever. I locked the doors. I said, next time that's a good point to blow the horn. At that point, you know, for future reference.
If you didn't know when to blow the horn, that's a good
Now you do.
yeah.
Now we know. We're all learning. So you know, it when the point comes when you think you have to lock the door, that's when you blow the horn. Lock the door first, blow the horn. So anyway, I get back and I'm like, I'm stunned. I'm like giddy. It's like scoring a touchdown in a Super Bowl. But once I
Oh,
get out of there, I'm scared until I get out of there, and then I'm like, whew, like, oh my god. And she said, "What was it?" I said, "There's about 30 tracks out there, and there's one large dude, and I think there's a female, and there's little ones." And I made the comment, why would somebody, I said, if this is not what I think this is, these smaller ones could be people, but it's
Yeah.
wintertime. Why would somebody be out here in the mud in this cold water walking barefoot? And I I did the show and I let everybody do that and I stopped it, at certain points. I'm like, look, this is a huge track right here. And you can see it. But so I get a message the next day, messenger. It's Debbie Porch from she grew up close to Falk, Arkansas. She married Larry Porch of Beast TV, and
Oh, you know a lot of
really,
people, man. You're gonna have to get me in contact with. I don't know. Like you, we have a
yeah,
few people that we know. We know
yeah,
Alfred Santoriga, uh, Daryl Denton, Martin Groves, of course.
yeah,
These are but then you start mentioning people. I'm like, who?
yeah, and,
All right,
really, really good people. I mean, really,
yeah.
really good. And she's been researching for a while now. She was in the group Sisters of the Moon or whatever. The ladies would go out and do their thing, and she actually saw a grayish one. I don't remember if she was in Texas or Arkansas when she saw one, but I get a message, and y'all get your pens out and pencils. Um, she sent me a message. She said, "Rodger, you were at Red Hollow, right?" I'm like, "Yes, I've never been there before." Pictures started boom, 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 boom. She said, you know about the Noble Reed Trackway?" I'm like, "No." She said, "We were there 3 years ago, and Patrick Noble and Shelley Reed was on the other side of that bay that you were on. It was the same thing. The water was down, and they found a big. They cast it. They've got the evidence they brought back. All of them got together and casted them. They drove like 20 miles to a
A
hardware
hardware
store and
store.
bought up all
Yeah.
their plaster of Paris and bought chicken wire to cut out to put in there to make them sturdy and all that. And she sent me pictures. She said, look at the big one here. Now look at it wasn't exactly like the one I saw, but it was a different type consistency the mud was that day, right? The two
Okay.
days. So but it was close to the same size. But the other ones looked really close. And she said, look, we feel like this is the big male, this is the female, and these little ones here. And we said the same thing. Why would somebody let their kids, they're all talking. Well, they made these casts, and she said this was in the same spot you just found those, and they felt better about it
Wow.
because I had, and somebody made
Help
fun of
confirm.
me. Yes, uh, somebody made fun of me and said, can you believe Rodger found legit Bigfoot tracks and he didn't cast any? And I said, you know what? If I'd had 100 pounds of casting material, you still
I
wouldn't
still,
see.
I
You
still
still
wouldn't
wouldn't.
cast them. Yeah.
No, because I had to get back to the truck
I'm
to
with you,
get
man.
what film that I got.
It's a lot.
It took me like now. I'm like y'all don't y'all whoever y'all are. I'm not here to hurt anybody. I just want to document this, and I'm getting out of here. You know, I don't know if that works or not, but in a few times in my life, we've got in situations. Uh, I have either said out loud. I mean, the other day we spooked up something in one of our hot spots. Uh, Me and my son, we were leaving. We were hunting. We were leaving, and we usually make a lot of noise so we don't run up on them. We've had rocks thrown at us, with tree breaks. We've had a lot of stuff happen. We haven't seen them yet, but there's a lot of sign there, and so we've heard them. Well, we're walking down. It's just starting to get dark. I've got a 2200 lumen flashlight in my hand, but I can still see enough to not need it to the right. Um, and this is hard for me to say because I didn't see it. I'm one that pretty much have to see it to tell you what it was. But it was like walking up on an old man. He didn't hear you coming, and it shuffled his feet. But this thing sounded like it weighed 700-800 pounds, and it turned towards us, and we couldn't see it because those woods were dark. And it went like, dang, y'all, like you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Like it scared me. Yeah.
It was upset, but I heard it turn like a quarter turn, and then and Peyton, my son, we've been through a lot of stuff in the last 4 years, and he looked at me. He said, "What was that?" I'm like, "Peyton, Might as well just stop. You know what that was, because he's my sound guy. I mean, if I have something on audio, I'm like, what is this? This sounds, and he'll, or like if you're out in the woods with him at night, I heard a whistle one night, and I thought, that's is that what I think it is? He said, no. He said, that's worse. I said, what do you mean worse? He said, that's a mother mountain lion calling for little ones. We need to go to the truck now. you know, and
Yes.
I said, cats don't whistle. He said, they do too. And we got on YouTube, and I'm like, well, I'll be dang. You learn
Oh,
stuff,
wow.
something new every day. But
But
anyway,
so not only do you do a podcasting, you actually go out and research and film it and then put it on your channel as well, or what? Or do you have
yeah,
two separate channels?
yeah, no, it's the same. We'll do stuff like we'll get out and walk, and here's another part. This is why I do this. I'm not good at this. I'm a little slow sometimes. Like I'll leave somewhere and I'll think, you know what, I should have done this or I should have done that. Maybe the next time I'll go check and make sure. So, but what I realized is there are people that watch our shows, watch your show. They're not lucky enough to be able to get out in the woods. They want to, but because of where they live in the big city, like you were talking about, they
Yes.
may be they may
Shout out to
be
Amber.
maybe in a apartment, maybe older folks that used to do this. Uh, Whatever the situation, they kind of enjoy some of that because they don't get to do it. And I like seeing different parts of the country. We have people from, you do too, I'm sure you have people from all over the world watching your show.
I absolutely do. Yes.
Yeah. So we'll get out and I'll turn the phone on or a camera and we'll just go for a walk, in the fall and show different properties or whatever. And, you're not, are you likely to see anything? No. What's cool is if you do walk up on that X or that broken tree that you can't explain.
Or that upside down tree.
Yeah, it
That
it
was the new one
it
for me.
yeah,
That was blowing me
you
away
know
right
this.
now.
And the thing is, I'm saying, that how big something will have to be. And they're like, well, you know what? I've heard they get 12 to 15.
I've heard 12. Yeah.
I had a guy pull out he's in Ohio. His name is Kane Michael. Very good researcher. He's got 700 acres of his own that he
No kidding.
researches. He whipped out a 24-inch cast one night, and I couldn't see him. And he was looking out behind it. The cast weighed 60 pounds because he didn't have what he needed. He used concrete. So, and, it's 24 inches, and he's like an engineer or something. So he did the math, like for human to the ratios, and he said
Right, right, right.
this one has to be like 15 foot tall. And he goes into how they leave different signs for each other, and he's made up some signs that he leaves, and this is going to a different level, like a whoa moment. I trust Kane with he's so thorough. He documents everything. He's a great guy. Um, he he said on my show one night, he said, he said, I won't tell anybody what I'm doing, but I kept seeing things. And I thought, well, I wonder if this is a language kind of sort of, they trying to communicate with me. He said, so I went and I thought, what, I'm going to make me a symbol. This comes from me. I'm not going to tell anybody about it. And I'm going to start bringing sticks and I'm going to leave my symbol in spots where I think there's a trail or I think there've been, whatever. And he said, Rodger, I walked out one morning and in front of my steps, there were sticks in the shape of my symbol at my my front steps.
That is now you're making connections that I've heard.
Yes.
I had
Yep.
on
Goosebumps again.
Gin Sabricus. He's in Canada, he's in Vancouver, and he said that they absolutely write in hieroglyphs.
Yeah. Well,
Absolutely.
Because of people like him and the guy you're talking about, I've had to start looking at things from a different perspective, taking some of your hunting experience. And so we've had this one spot where we had the rock thrown at us and other stuff happened since 2020. Every year, my son put a stand up. It's so you're walking at 12 o'clock up this hill. There's an old pathway to get to it. Every year we have found we got some trees here that's really hard with 3 or 4 inch thorns on them, and they're locusts, and it hardest wood you'll ever. I mean, you put locust wood in a wood heater, and you'll burn the house down. It'll melt the heater. So it's that hard.
Oh,
So, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but that's how
Yeah,
hot.
yeah, yeah.
I've seen the pipe, the vent pipes turn orange and the heaters turn orange with that. So, daddy's running around back in the late 70s. Who put locusts in the heater? But anyway, that's how hard it is. So, thinking about what Kane and some of those people talk about, these trees have been, something had to reach in with hands at 5.5 foot, one's at 10, and just snap these things like they're toothpicks. But there's, tractors have a hard time with them, and there's no tractor equipment marks on them. Every and there's thorns everywhere. I mean, it'd be hard to reach in there. Well,
Right.
there's no broken thorn, and they're 3 and 4 inches. There's no broken thorn anywhere. There's no scuffs on the tree. It's not bent. Something looked like it reached in and just snapped it. Okay. For 3 years, we found a tree just like that. Happened right before deer season. Then some new people got permission to hunt, and they put a stand up down the hill where we spooked that thing, and it turned and huff
Well,
growled.
yes, yes, yes.
So Peyton, he sent me a picture. He said, "Look what I found." And there's another one. It's pretty big around, and it's broken and pointing down the hill. I'm like, dang, that's different than the others. He said, guess where the new stand is at? I said, where? He's just pointing right to it. I'm like, oh, wait a minute.
Then you started thinking back to the stuff. Oh, okay.
So now this is speculation.
Yes.
So is this mark here? Behind this is danger. Two broke like this. In this direction, there's danger. And then the others, like people used to do, like if I was going through blazing the trail and you were coming behind me a month later, I'd break a branch or something pointing towards water or, whatever we made up,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like you see that branch, well, there's something over here. That's speculation, but you have to do that because if it continues, the pattern continues, we may be on to something.
Yeah, like it's kind of like a directional arrow pointing.
Exactly.
Have you then thought about where the tree stand was that you guys hunted at? If these locust trees are pointing at your tree stand?
They're not pointing at that because it's at 12 o'clock. They're broken just like this, but they're not broken this way. If you They're broken like this, and just on the other side is the tree stand. So what
Okay.
I'm thinking is maybe something like that means straight ahead. Because if you think about this, if I break a tree pointing up that way, then I
You
mean
won't
I
see it.
guess that could work. But what if it means behind this is danger or whatever, up there, whatever? But I don't know. That's the thing. That's my
That's
favorite three words that I don't know. But
yeah, yeah. We have there's nothing wrong with not knowing. You know what I mean? There's nothing
and
wrong with not knowing, and people need to understand that too. I
yeah,
don't. Like we were talking about at the beginning, this high horse mentality of like, this is
yeah,
my, and that's the way it is. We don't need that. I also talked to Tim Gayhart, also up in Ohio, and he's pretty. He's got some interesting stuff too, man. So you have to send me some of these names. Maybe if it would be okay with you, I could reach out and maybe contact them, and like I
yeah,
would just love to talk to them and pick their brain. This is
yeah. Look,
it's fascinating.
here's here's it's not funny, but just what we've been talking about. I was listening to a big podcast, uh, and there was a guy that had some letters after his name. He's educated and all that, which is fine because we need. I think we need everybody. I think we need hunters. We need people that grew up in a certain area. We need people that have studies of this. Like Dr. Meldrum, because when they say something and they're like, yeah, that's a primate foot. That helps. So, but this guy was
Yes.
like, yeah, I take it more seriously. I go from a scientific side here, and I don't want to talk to the guy that lives in the holler named Bubba drinking a Budweiser. And I'm like, I said, I'm sitting there thinking, whoo, you just made mad. You made a lot of people mad just then. And the thing
Right.
is, I know a lot of people like that they'll say, they live around me, and I've been to some of these places, and they're telling the truth. I mean, find tracks. I've got a hair right now in my possession that the first inch of it is black as coal, and it still has the. I'm not an expert, but something supposedly come up and tried to open the door up, right? And I've got pictures of long arm hair, greasy, where the dust, and it would have reached across and it had been the right height, and tried to open this door. And I documented the best I could, and I found the hair. And we talk about some of this stuff with the clear hair and all. Well, the first inch of it is
Clear hair.
black. It's
Clear
black.
hair.
The second 2 inches it looks like fiber optics. There's no color. There's no pigment. There's nothing. I've got
That's
this.
interesting.
I've got it ready to send out as soon as I did send it to somebody. It came back, returned to sender because they had a problem with their PO box. But I may just break down and send it to Darby Orcutt over at that university. They're taking stuff like that, so it may come back and say, "You dummy, that's a possum hair."
It's
Well, I ain't
clear
never.
and vibrant. That's
It's
so
clear.
interesting.
It's clear. Well,
That's
now,
weird.
so coming from like I said, from seeing things and experiencing, some paranormal, and I never had the poltergeist where something moves or whatever, but I did have something grab me
Oof.
by the toe one night in a room in Gatlinburg and snatched my foot and leg and everything almost off the bed. And I thought
Oh,
somebody,
that's
yeah, I thought somebody, I was awake because I worked at nights and I was on vacation. My daughter was with me. She was in another bed. And of course, first thing I thought somebody didn't come in on us. And I'm closest to the door. I turned the light on and ready to fight, and scared too, and ready to fight. And there's nobody there. And I
Mm.
was awake planning the trip because I worked at night. So when I woke up at 3, I wasn't going back to sleep. I was just laying there on my back, like, okay, what route will we take where she can see mountains and you know take her time or whatever. And I'm rolling this around, and what time do I need to wake her up? Doing the dad thing. And
Yeah,
man, all of a
that
sudden
man stuff.
it felt like a thumb, and this finger here grabbed me by the big toe, the left side, and just snatched as hard as it could. And now get this, my feet are under the cover,
Yeah.
and the cover didn't do that. You know what I mean? It's like it reached through the cover. I know it sounds crazy, but
No, it don't.
and I'm like,
It really doesn't.
well, when the light comes on, she's like, "Daddy, what are you doing?" I said, "You know what? I think we're gonna get an early start." I didn't tell her what happened or anything. I said, "Go take your shower and let's." I got a way I want to go. I just acted like everything was normal, and you go through.
Yeah, we have to do that sometimes. We have to do that sometimes. And they do that for us too when it comes to, family matters and stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
Rodger, I'm going to slowly wind this down, my friend. Please, could you do me a favor and just tell people where they can find you? And you also need to send me all these links too, if you want
okay,
to. If not, I'll go or just tell me where to look for them. I'll get them myself. I want people to find your show.
okay. Well, um, you got the YouTube is the main one. It's a Squatchin Holler with a. You see the flag back here. It's without a G, Squatchin Holler, and it's at Rodger 1971 is the quickest way to search. Um, I do a little bit on TikTok, and I do a little Twitter or X or whatever, Facebook. Y'all can send a friend request. I'll add you. Long and the way I am, I'll add anybody. But if they start acting goofy, I'm like, oh, I don't,
Yeah, it happens,
you have
dude.
to
It happens.
weed those out sometimes. But more times, it's okay. More times than not. But yeah, just check it out. Go back. I would recommend the with Tim Kumbo Baker, that 6 hour one, you breaking it up. If you get to a boring spot where we're just chit chatting, like just being guys, kind of scroll through a little bit. There's some amazing stories in there. He tells a story about a guy sighting his rifle in and getting folded over backwards, and he went and
Whoa.
investigated with the county sheriff called him and said, "We need you up here. We got a problem." So tracks
Whoa.
everywhere, multiple tracks everywhere. Um, yeah, and they think he might have uh, uh, ended one, and the rest of the group ended him. So anyway, but and
Ooh.
you go through and look at some of my latest show. I took a couple months off, 3 months off. I did a good show the other night. It was fun. We had had Mr. William Lunsford on. Y'all have seen him on Small Town Monsters. He's got a couple of books. He grew up around Falk, Arkansas. Has some great stories. Does a lot of research now. He's 65. He still does research. That got him started. Was that first sighting? And my co-host for this time, I've never had a co-host, and I reached out to somebody that I had interviewed, and she's really got a great attitude. She's got really smart, fun, and so if you're ever on TikTok and you see Amanda the Bigfoot lady, she works at the Bigfoot Museum in Georgia. I think it's called Expedition Bigfoot Museum or whatever. That's the latest one, and you can go look at that one. But anyway, just join us and subscribe if you would. And if you don't like it, it's free to subscribe. If you don't like it, it won't hurt my feelings if you unsubscribe because we ain't for everybody. We don't. I don't
Right.
have the big budget, and I don't have the music, and I do have a cool intro, but it's just us talking. You know,
Yeah,
yeah,
but that's that. I think that's what's lost a lot of times. A lot of this stuff, like people will put on these incredible things, but in the end, the podcast isn't that good. The podcast is about that interaction. That's what people are
yeah,
starting, hopefully, picking up on that. And it's not everyone can do it either. I'm not saying I'm the best at it, or
right.
but it's a skill that you learn through time, and it's fun to do. It's really
Well,
enjoyable to do.
and
And yeah,
when we do the live, we have a core group of people that are so funny and so welcoming to new people, and they
oh
become like
yeah,
family. They have
yes,
we've gained their trust, and we've met them, and uh, uh, met a lot of them, and actually have places to go, places I'm scared to go because I've seen pictures and I've seen the evidence. And Holland's Hunter Camp, got invited down there. There's a bunch of us went down there. You can look on my YouTube on the shorts. Uh, my wife and I didn't know it before I got down there. There was a guy out of a tree stand and in the early '80s, and that's a huge story down there. I didn't know that. We get down there and everybody's about ready to eat, and we walk. I got that sense again. I said we need to go walk now. Went out there and I turned the phone on. 30 seconds later, uh, one screams, not 60, 70 yards away. Another one answers back, and they were triangulated. Another one on another ridge answers back, and then the coyotes pop off. Well, people are like, "How do you know there wasn't coyotes?" When when you know what coyotes sound like, you know what wolves sound like. So when I got back, I've got friends that has the uh, spectrogram, and they put it on there, and they're like, these are not coyotes. This is, we think this is legit."
something
So
else.
there's stuff like that on there. So anyway, I'm long
Yeah,
winded. Tom's done a good job
don't worry
of
about it, buddy.
keeping in check.
I'm doing my very best. We will. That's what we're always trying to do, man. And yeah, dude, don't be a stranger, man. Maybe one time we'll have a live, and then you can come on there too. I want everyone to meet you. I have a small, wonderful group.
Yep.
Shout out to the best moderator in the world. Her name is Pam Stefanich. I don't know if you know her. She's a moderator.
I, actually, I
She's
do. She
she's amazing.
she sent me a message to actually today. Um,
Oh,
no,
okay.
Pam is wonderful. There's you know, uh, yesterday, or I think when you sent me the message, and I realized it wasn't February. I checked out your channel, and I saw Pancho Zorch, and I'm like, wait a minute, he's in chat all the time. So I watched some of that, like, oh, okay. He's never said anything like, "Hey, you want to come on" or whatever. He's
It was
funny.
weird.
He's got a good sense of humor,
It happened. He was in my chat one day on one of my lives, and he goes, "Well, that also happened to me in my encounter." And I like,
Yeah.
well, okay, wait a minute. Who? Okay, hey, dude,
Who are
write me
you?
on my email. Write me on my email. He wrote me back, and then boom, he was on. It's a good episode. It's not getting much traction, but it's just a really good episode.
Well,
His encounter, the one towards the end, that one is, I don't know what that is. It's a
well,
weird
the
one.
thing is,
It looked like it was wearing a gray, like a old gray army sweatsuit, like we used to wear in the military, and it like he said he thinks it was transitioning. It was, I don't know what the hell he saw, but
look,
it's wild.
I saw something beginning of last year. I was driving, I was working, I was hauling people to doctor visits in a big van, So I was sitting up
Mhm.
really high, And I would go through Yanali Land Preserve, and I've had people say, "Look, you need to go out here," and because it's 1,200 acres, but it's kind of broken up. And well, I was actually going through part of it, and I always head on a swivel, and it frosted really heavy that morning, and it was just after daylight. I looked over, and if I was in my car, I wouldn't be able to see it, but I'm up in this van, and I looked down on the other side of the guardrail, and when I saw it, my stomach flipped over because I haven't seen anything since I was 14. And I'm not saying this was a Bigfoot, but what I'm saying is that about 4 or 5 seconds that I got to lock in on it, I the one foot, the left foot was pointing towards the road, the other foot was opened up, and the stance was opened up like if it needed to run, you know. Uh,
Yeah.
but what confused me, it was all black. I thought I had a hoodie on, and there was gray here and there was gray here, but I'm like, why would somebody have a gray backpack on? Well, it was big, but a few days later, I saw somebody walking close to that guardrail, just walking down the road, and they were closer than that thing would have been. And this thing, I think, was double the size of that person. So it gave me a little reference point. I'm not
Yeah.
saying it
So
was, but it took me weeks to like,
yeah, I think I was directed to you by James R. Hood. I think if you know James R.
oh
Hood,
yeah,
he's very active. Yeah, he was like, you need to talk to this guy. I was like, all right, I'll contact him. You know, what I mean? That's what happens is like word of
yep,
mouth, and then
yep,
I meet someone like you. I think you're an awesome podcaster. Just I think you have it, whatever that is. You have it, dude. And I think we're gonna have a lot of conversations in the future. I mean, I can see you coming on multiple lives and just chewing the rug and just
yeah.
chatting and just
And look,
shooting the breeze. And
if you
that
have
would
a
be
round table, if you have a round table one night, and you have several on, I, I may
okay.
sit there and not say anything, listening to the
No,
people,
don't worry about it.
but
Ooh, okay, I have my 1 year anniversary show I want to do on a Friday, like on an hour, like for an hour. It's on the 14th of February. I know that I know you might be taking Heather out to do something, but uh
well,
just let me know. And if not, that's okay too, man. No worries.
okay.
I'll just get just my first offer, and that would be cool too. It's just I'm
Well,
just trying to. I
hey,
offered my buddy Neil yesterday, who was on my live. He's an incredible guy. Yeah, but I'm just looking, just to have a good time and just kind of celebrate like
yep,
the 1 year anniversary of this iteration of the podcast, the Eye of Jupiter.
uh,
So,
if I
you're welcome
can,
to come on.
I'm gonna have hip replacement on the 5th. So if I'm feeling better, which I should be, I might be available that night. So we'll see. It
All right.
depends on what
No,
Heather says.
well, maybe she wants to cook you a nice meal or something. My girlfriend, my birthday's the next day. My birthday's the next day, and she's like, I'm want to take my daughter and her out to have a meal.
Yeah.
But you never know. Sometimes when it comes to those certain dates, just kind of let the ladies do their thing, and that's makes them happy, and that makes me happy. So it's all good, man. Either way, we'll definitely do something in the future for sure. That's for definite.
Okay.
And if you want, like
Keep
I
in
said,
touch.
yeah, the opportunity is open. And if you want me on to talk and you need to fill some time somewhere, I have some stories too, man.
Well, I'm
All
gonna
right,
write
buddy.
that down
All right, man.
for sure. And
Thank you so
y'all,
much, Roger.
got can I leave people with this? You can edit this out if you want to. If you do go out and do stuff, be prepared uh, because there's things that can happen out there. But my advice to people, they always ask, well, how would you start? Go out in outdoors and have fun. Go with your family. Go do things. Don't necessarily go looking for things, to happen. And usually that's it. These usually they're accidental. People that go looking for them, they know you're out there because you're going to their home. Somebody
Hmm.
comes in your home, they're there. So listen to some music, have a fire, play a guitar, and whatever, and just have fun with everybody.
Yeah,
Don't let
go out
this
into nature. That's a
don't
good
let this
idea.
consume you. Don't get obsessed with it. If it's meant to happen and they want you to see them, it'll happen.
All right, buddy. Thank you so much, man. You have yourself a nice night, and I appreciate you coming on, dude.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it.
All right, buddy. Later. So that was the wonderful Rodger Williams from Squatchin Holler. Thank you, James R. Hood, my buddy James. That was cool, man. You never know who you're going to run into doing this podcasting thing. And he knows certain people that I know, and I know certain people he doesn't, and he knows people that I don't. And it's just like we're just an ever widening community of interested people. Whether you're a researcher, whether you're into psychedelics, whether you're into lost time, all the interesting things that I'm into. Once again, if you like the channel, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, go ahead and hit the bell notification, go ahead and download the episodes, listen to it while you're at work if you're allowed to, selling your Coca-Cola products. I think last time I said Pepsi-Cola. And just enjoy the content. And I appreciate you guys so very much. And remember, we are the eye and we are aware. I love you all.